Alright, guys, so I want to take a moment to talk about Europe's biggest economy. Because with all the tensions in the Middle East, Germany is about to get hit hard again. And let's recall what Olaf Scholz said back in January. He confidently told everyone that Germany would not fall into a recession. And why? Because Germany has fresh sources of energy. But this is a false equivalence. Having fresh sources of energy does not mean you are getting cheap energy needed for your economy. Sure, you can import LNG, you can bring in oil from Saudi Arabia, or you can burn lignite coal. You'll get your energy for sure, but those sources are far more expensive than Siberian gas. And here's the reality of Germany's manufacturing power. Here's what underpins it. All those decades of dominance were predicated on one key variable, and that is cheap Russian gas. Now, Credit Suisse has this amazing chart that we need to revisit to fully understand the situation. We can see something amazing. Around $20 billion of Russian gas controls up to $2 trillion worth of German manufacturing output. And that is a 100 times leverage in the system that was supporting the beating heart of German economy. And now that is gone. Germany has a big problem. There's an energy gap that has to be filled, and the only option left is expensive fuel. It's LNG from America, LNG from Qatar, and Norway. And this is having a material effect on their industries and squeezing margins to the point their exports are no longer competitive. Things made in China and things made in America are cheaper than in Europe, and it's obvious why. Even today, the price of gas in the EU is still 4 times higher than pre Ukraine. It was around $12 per megawatt hour back then, but today it's at least 4 times higher, well above $50. So there's no conceivable way you can maintain competitiveness when energy costs are sky high, right? We have to factor it into the sticker price, which just turns off consumers. We are heading into a global recession and prices do matter. And now, Germany is finally waving the white flag. In a report by Bloomberg, the economy ministry admits that GDP in 2023 will likely contract by 0.3%. They are admitting a recession, but they're still rather optimistic about growth projections of 1.3% next year. But this is a premature victory lap again. They have discounted the situation in the Middle East, Russia's next moves, and the coming winter. So Germany is facing a triple whammy. There's still high inflation from the supply issues, elevated energy prices, and a manufacturing collapse. And all of them are interconnected. And each factor, unfortunately, is going to deteriorate even further. Now, the problem Germany has is a lack of innovation. We have heard of the powerful German auto industry, right? Sure, they still hold a commanding presence in combustion engines, but when it comes to EVs, electric vehicles, they are nowhere near the top, and the future is EV. We have Chinese brands like BYD dominating the industry, and America's Tesla at number 2. Volkswagen comes in at a distant number 3, and number 4 and 5 are American and Chinese companies as well. So we can literally see Germany's lunch being eaten by the world's biggest economies. And when you boil it down, everything is a function of cost. The gap between German quality and American or Chinese made is also nearly non existent. Their argument falls flat on its face. But let's talk about price because that is the driving force in today's economy, isn't it? Can you sell me something of quality that is cheaper than your competitors? It's really as simple as that. And remember that interest rates are sky high, which means money and credit they are very tight. People want more for less. And according to the European Commission, EVs made in China are typically a fifth cheaper than EU made models. So if an EV costs around 50,000 euros to manufacture in Germany, China can do it for 40,000 or cheaper. In fact, this price differential can hit 40% or more. A report found that EVs made in China cost only 32,000 euros versus 56,000 euros manufactured in Europe. So it's literally impossible to compete. And that's why you have German automakers like Volkswagen investing a ton of money in Chinese EV brands. They threw almost $1 billion to develop EVs together with the Chinese. Now, the edge China and the US has over Germany are very distinct but powerful. It's something that German industry fundamentally lacks. So China has subsidized energy costs as a result of cheap energy from Russian gas, right? You throw China's renewable sources into the mix and you have an energy glut pushing down prices, which is extremely advantageous for their industries. Back in May, a province in China, Shandong, experienced negative electricity prices for a few weeks, and this means you get paid to offtake electricity because the power grid is being overloaded with abundant energy. In fact, if you look at the average electricity prices companies actually pay in China, there's no energy crisis at all. In fact, prices have been dropping since 2019. Chinese industries are paying less for energy, which lowers their cost of manufacturing. America's case is very different. They are luring German manufacturers to set up shop in the United States. Remember the infamous Inflation Reduction Act? Now, a big part of it revolves around giving incredible subsidies to bring EV automakers all the way to America. If you manufacture or assemble your EV in America, your vehicle qualifies for a tax credit of $7,500 for consumers, and this is significant. This is just one of the many benefits of relocating production to the US, and that's why BMW is investing billions to build EVs there. And if this was a wrestling match, the German industry is getting tag teamed by both America and China at the same time. The Undertaker and Kane, they are giving Germany a choke slam. If you want cheap energy and to access the Chinese market, you move to China. If you prefer generous subsidies, then head to America. And either way, the German industry is getting hollowed out. And the energy crisis isn't going to let up. Germany's entire energy base is largely outsourced to expensive energy suppliers, and this cost basis is just going to increase. And let's reflect on Germany's energy situation. Around half of Germany's energy mix still comes from fossil fuels. This includes oil, natural gas, and coal, and all of their prices are up from pre-Ukraine levels. And this is where things get really tragic because oil and gas have to be imported. Germany is at the mercy of market forces. Now, things in the Middle East are getting really volatile and tensions are already escalating as we speak. Israel is getting ready to move in, or by the time this video airs, they might have already done so. And Israel has also shut off their Tamar gas field, which provides 70% of the country's power generation. This is significant not just for Israel, but for the global gas markets, and it's already starting to have a material impact. Because of this halt, gas shipments to Egypt has fallen by 20%. This is significant because it constricts supply to Europe, including Germany. The LNG vessels might also be facing delays if this conflict spreads far enough. So Germany has to prepare to pay more for the LNG imports. Getting the supply isn't a problem, as we said before, it's just a matter of price. And as they pay more, the greater the collapse of their industrial capacity. But the true tragedy is the remainder of Germany's energy mix, right? Germany used to have nuclear power plants. Let's not forget that. Nuclear power is generally cheaper than fossil fuels, especially for Germany today, which doesn't have direct access to cheap Russian gas anymore. But because of the energy transition, they have phased out all of their nuclear power plants. The last three nuclear power plants were shut down just a few months back in April 2023. And that's 6 to 7% of Germany's total energy generation gone, plus it's not going to come back anytime soon. And that leaves Germany with coal, which we all know is bad for the environment. This isn't going green. The carbon footprint of burning coal is enormous. It's actually the most polluting way to generate electricity. But Germany doesn't really have a choice. In 2022, 33% of Germany's entire power generation came from coal. Comparatively, only 20% of America's energy mix is burning coal. And we can see that coal is now Germany's number one fossil fuel of choice. And the type of coal used is called lignite, which they mine locally. And lignite is the worst type of coal around. It generates the least amount of heat when you burn it. It has low energy density, which means you produce less power. And as gas prices continue to rise because of the Middle East situation, Germany will be forced to burn more coal and pollute the environment more. Greta Thunberg won't be happy about this. And if things erupt further in the Gulf, the whole world will be scrambling to protect themselves. The Americans will protect their own domestic economy. They will simply reroute energy exports back to the United States, while China will simply import more oil and gas from Russia. And where does this leave Germany? Paying much more for gas from Norway or burning much more coal, maybe even both. It is the devil's deal. And that's why Germany's industrial fate might be sealed. It's a mixture of bad decisions plus the perfect storm, and we have said it 1,000 times now. You just can't immediately go green. The phasing out of fossil fuels has to be very gradual. But Germany is now digging an even bigger grave. Germany now only has one card left to play, which is to outsource the bulk of their manufacturing to countries with cheap and efficient manufacturing, right? And one obvious place would be to embrace China and move their base there. But other than some private companies doing so, the national push is to decouple further away from China. And they created a 60-page paper on countering China, which I find unnecessary. Plus, the Bundesbank is warning companies to cut their exposure to Beijing. This is where things get really crazy. The bank warns that 29% of German companies imported essential materials and parts from China, exposing their operations to significant damage. They want German industries to cut down their imports from China, but there's a reason why Germany imports the most stuff from there. Imports are even double that of the US. It's because a ton of those imports are stuff like steel and basic electronics. And these are raw materials needed for German manufacturing, and China is selling them dirt cheap compared to the rest of the world. That's why they are buying in the first place. And if this happens, Germany is going to score another own goal. It's going to be a hat trick. If you remove the cheap imports from your industry to take the moral high ground, this will destroy German manufacturing even more. Your cars, your machinery, and your chemicals will cost more than anywhere else in the world. Hasta la vista is the end, and unlike Arnold, you won't be back. So, this political choice is another reason why it's more or less over for Europe's biggest economy. I'm not saying Germany will cease to exist, but their economy would have to transition more towards a service based economy, which they aren't familiar with. It's not like they can immediately transition into banking. Wall Street in America has been at it for hundreds of years. But this deindustrialization isn't just because of higher energy prices. Germany also has a chronic labor shortage. There just isn't enough local talent around to support the economy. And this labor crunch is getting really serious. We now have the German government calling for more immigrants to fix their shrinking economy. And they kind of got it right. It's higher rates, a global trade slowdown, and a shortage of skilled workers. And what does this mean? Well, Germany needs to import tons of ready to work labor into the country, but that kind of introduces potential problems as well. Can these new people assimilate into German society? Will there be immigration problems? We just don't know. And workers looking to head to Germany will be demanding higher pay at a time where their economy is starting to shrink. Can the Germans dish out enough money to outbid other parts of the world like China or the United States? Because if they don't, the industrial expertise won't come. They just won't come. So Germany has an enormous demographic problem that many people just don't know about. It is one of the super age societies in the world, which is a workforce nightmare for their manufacturing base. According to the United Nations, Germany's population aged 65 and older will grow by 41% by 2050. At the same time, the population aged 15 to 64, which is the industrial base, will shrink by 23%. That is a huge drop. And this is essentially a labor crunch no matter how you look at it. So immigration is a must and Germany has to do it fast. Now, how long will this deindustrialization last? It could be 5 to 10 years or even faster, depending on how bad this energy crisis really gets. And with the Middle East literally engulfed in chaos, high oil prices are here to stay for some time. The longer Germany's industrial base moves overseas, even when energy prices comes down, there is an enormous gap in progress they have to fill. The Americans, the Chinese will be leagues ahead in manufacturing and technology by then, and just trying to catch up will require a titanic effort and lots of money. Now, I hate to say this, but the situation just got bleaker. Just a week ago, the Finland Estonia pipeline was discovered to be damaged, and Finland suspects that the Baltic pipeline was sabotaged. We have no idea as of now, but it doesn't really matter. Gas prices in Europe flew up by 13%, which is a new nightmare for Germany. They literally can't catch a break. It's one energy crisis after the other. And now that the pipeline is shut down, this is going to prevent gas flowing from Finland to Estonia, which is in mainland Europe. So a bigger energy crunch is coming for Germany if this continues. The end result, energy prices go up, manufacturing industry goes down. It's really a simple equation now. Now I hope things get better for Germany. Maybe winter will be mild or maybe they'll restart nuclear energy again. But as it stands, the situation isn't good and this deindustrialization will just get worse as the Middle East crisis drags on. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Can Germany escape this tragedy? And will things in the Middle East escalate or get better? Let me know in the comments below. Stay safe, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe as we navigate through these crazy times.